Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about underachievers. So let's get into it. So the in question here was a bit of a story, but basically it was that a subscriber reached out and told me that he's working with an underachiever programmer. He knows that this person is very good, but most of the time this person doesn't really give it his all or tries to avoid certain things and so forth. And basically he's wondering why this is. So the short answer is that the person in question might be insecure, like you just have low confidence, or it might be a very, very planned thing. So if we're talking about insecurities, it's actually very normal for programmers to perceive, well, not just programmers of course, but for quite a lot of people who are actually very talented to not even see their own talent. I work with such an individual. He is a very humble, mellow, low-key type of guy. He's the sort of person that, it's actually funny because I've said to him 100 times that, dude, if I didn't know that you were a programmer, I would just assume that you were the nicest person in the world working at Volvo's assembly line, just standing there being super happy, putting together car parts all day long, because that's the sort of person he is. He's very unassuming and just very laid back and very pleasant, right? But he also does have this thing where some people, you probably, maybe you are such a person yourself, they are humble to the point where they can't even see their own value in many situations. And that's part of a self-image where they feel most often that they shouldn't stick out all that much, and you know, everybody is doing something better than them and so forth. This complete humbleness that you may have can sometimes become a little bit extreme, and if you're really too far on that side, you might actually start to feel self-conscious about your own contributions to a project or a group or something like that. And although I believe that it's a very good personal trait to have a certain level of humbleness and not get too excited and too full of yourself, it's a bit dangerous to get to the point where you're so humble that you don't actually think that you matter at all or that you have any value. Because I've told, and this is an exercise I do with this coworker of mine on a very regular basis, where I try to collaborate with him as much as possible, because I know that he has a mental picture of me as this driving force behind ideas and stuff of this nature, the sort of thing that he wants to be associated with, or some things that he sees as a limitation in himself. So because I know this, I know that the best way for me to help out here is to collaborate with this person, to have that rubber duck session, like make sure that I always over communicate with him, because whenever I come up with a thought, and this is something that I need from him, which is the thing that I'm trying to make him understand, that I have limitations as well, and so do quite a lot of people, and he complements these skills in many ways because he's fairly slow, methodical, and so forth. So this insecurity is actually the reason why he gets stuff done, but the subscriber might actually be describing such an individual, a person who simply needs to feel included rather than taking that initiative on their own volition, because they are unable to take that initiative simply because they view themselves as less as the group. Even if that's not true, even if they're super talented, it's all about the mental picture they have of themselves. And if you want to help such an individual, the best way to help them is to actually engage with them. Even if you have a solution to the problem, even if you've already figured out all the steps that you need to take, sit down with such an individual, such a person, talk to them and ask their opinion about it. If you keep on doing that for long enough, they're going to start to see that they are actually valuable. They're going to feel like people actually come to them for advice, and they can actually help out in that regard or in this specific situation. And this is the sort of thing that builds confidence in an individual, to feel that sense of achievement by either solving a problem by yourself or helping somebody out and feeling the gratitude of that person. The other part that might be happening is that this individual might be consciously trying to avoid certain things. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there are a few examples, but I will just stick to the things that I have seen that are fairly common, and one that I actually do myself. So one way that they might do this consciously is that they avoid certain tasks because it's a hassle for them. They might be this sort of person who knows that if they get to, they simply don't care enough, if you will. Like, they try to avoid tedious tasks or getting into very tough types of work simply because they can't be bothered, right? They're unmotivated or things of this nature and so forth. That is definitely an option, but the option that I hope at least, this is not maybe the case, but this is the case for me, is that they're not avoiding everything. They're just avoiding certain things. And this is the thing that we need to pretty much have a bit of a perspective on, I think. So avoiding certain types of work is actually very useful depending on what your career goals are as a programmer. So something that I always do, and this is something that I've been doing for quite some time, is that I try to identify these tasks that will end up being a sinkhole for me. And what I mean by a sinkhole is that there is this principle that I like to call that if you break it, you own it, which means that whenever you get associated with some problem or some type of concept within the code base, you become the domain expert. And as soon as you become the domain expert in this area, everybody's going to come to you. You're going to own that for the rest of your time at that company. If you put your name on a big delivery of some product or something like that, then you are perceived as being the person who knows the most. And this will be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what's going to happen is that people are going to come to you, ask questions, even things that you don't know. And then you are forced pretty much to go and research, and then you become more of an expert, and then the spiral continues until you are truly the expert of this area. Now, this is a very good thing in some situations, but it's also a very dangerous thing, because if you allow this to happen with work tasks that are associated to sales, or to work with customers, or management type of task, administrative work, or things like that, scheduling and meetings and stuff like that, you will be roped in very, very quickly and find yourself pretty much coding less and doing more work on behalf of the sales team, on behalf of the administrative team, and all of a sudden, without even noticing it, you have actually stopped being a full-time developer, and now you're pretty much either 80-20 or 50-50, or usually it's 60-40, working with setting up presentations, providing technical documentation to tons and tons of customers, going on business trips just to sit in on meetings where sometimes you're needed, sometimes you're not needed, and like tasks of this nature. I have two coworkers who made this exact choice, and this is I've told them before, because we were all three up as candidates for these sorts of work tasks when the company needed it. And I said that I will do this, but I don't want to, because it's not in line with where I want to go with my career. And they, because they're very nice people, said yes. And today I know for a fact that they are getting by, but they are starting to feel a little bit of discomfort with the company basically going to them for everything. And the company, they depend on these people enormously, because it's very rare for people to go from being very needed in an area to be a domain expert to just being cut loose and then being free, because it's from the perspective of the company, there's always a sense of urgency. There's always something that needs to be done, and they always want the person with the most knowledge to take care of it. That's why a senior is a senior. That's why a senior is so valuable, because they want to have this one person that they can take every single thing that they have to and have that being solved. They don't care about spreading knowledge. They don't care about mitigating risk and stuff like that, because things are burning absolutely everywhere, so they just need someone to take care of it. And if you are that person, then you very quickly become roped into all the tasks. You can forget about, anybody can take any tasks for the most part. Because if it's business related in this fashion, they will forget, they will ignore all of this and just go to the person that seems to be the person most suited for that task. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you deal with an underachiever or someone who is pretty good but still underachieves, it might be the case that the person in question just has a very a poor self-image, and they really only need, like, they are good, it's just that they don't see themselves as being good. And helping such a person is as simple as including them in decisions and including them in your own stories and just asking them to rubber duck to get some advice. And if you continue that process, they will start to build up a sense of self-esteem simply because they're able to deliver on their own stories, but they're also able to help out their coworkers. And the other part is that they might just be unmotivated, or like, they don't really feel the need to stretch themselves. They're just there to do a job. And the third alternative is my favorite, which is that they are consciously avoiding certain tasks because they know that if they give their boss their finger, he's going to take the whole arm. He's going to suck them into this role where they're pretty much forced to play the part of a technical salesperson or a pet programmer that can be pulled in at any moment and be forced to write documentation and like do all of these things for business needs and help sales out with their presentations and technical discussions with customers and so forth. And unless that's the sort of thing you want, you have to be very clear about not going, you have to make a conscious decision to not go down that route, because I swear to you, you will be surprised at how quickly you become a major dependency if you're kind of nice here and you just help out a little bit. It can go like over a few weeks, you just became the technical salesperson without wanting to. So be a little bit careful if that's not your goal. Have a great day.